This time on Timmy Joe PC Tech, we set out to build a $250 gaming PC that can run even the latest and greatest titles from 2019. And as we can clearly see, I totally succeeded. 15 frames, totally succeeded. So cue up that intro, Timmy Joe. This is gonna be a good one.
Timmy Joe reviews anything.
Reviewing computer parts on YouTube.
That's
Woo! Gotta be pumped on that, right, Will? Computer parts! Woo!
Oh, yeah.
Woo! Come on down to Timmy Joe's Computer Warehouse and Emporium, where we've got all kinds of discount computers and crazy prices. We've got AMD motherboards, DDR2 memory. We've got stock coolers. We've got this mechanical spinning hard disk. It's spinning and hard disky. Current gen graphics cards. Current gen. We've got this. It's a computer case. It's still good, even though it's got a CD-ROM and floppy in it. It's still a good computer case. We've got power supplies. Make you look like the Predator. Yeah, so come on down to Timmy Joe's Computer Warehouse and Emporium, where we pass the savings on to you! What's wrong with me? Hi there, it's Timmy Joe, making videos about computers on the internet. I'm sorry if I offended any people from the South. So, we have $250 6-core computer, $250, 250 bones. Oh my goodness, and it's even got a current gen graphics card and a 6-core processor. Heck, 8 gigs of RAM is just a perfect computer, ain't it? Well, I'm gonna have to go ahead and say, disclaimer, Phenom processors, Phenom 2 even, don't have some CPU instruction sets that are required for some current games, including the almighty Apex Legends. So, it's going to suck to build this and find out that you can't play your favorite game. So before you go ahead and do a Phenom, check out the games, your favorite games. Make sure they work with it. And I'm not guaranteeing that it's not going to get worse. So, you're getting what you paid for, $250. Now, we could swap some of this around and use some FX processors instead, specifically some 4 cores. Phil's Computer Lab just did a wonderful retrospective on the 4100 and the 4300, which are supported for most games these days. So I recommend you check his thing out if you want to see the performance on that. This will be a little bit better, even though it's an older processor, because of the 6 cores. And Phenom, even though they're less power efficient, definitely have their advantages. So let's talk about the computer parts. So Phenom X6 or two X6. We have a whole range of them from the 1035 all the way up to the 1100. I have the second best one here, the 1090T. Now, I'm going with one of the worst motherboards you could go with for that. So, if you don't mind pardoning my pardons there, I'm, kind of painting the picture. We'll see the performance on this of what you'll generally get from a Phenom, X10 something. And 8 gigs of RAM, because you could go with a DDR3 solution for probably in and around the same price if you hunted right, or maybe looked on some Craigslist or local stuff, and end up with a better system than me, for the same price. So keep that in mind. So moving on, we have the 1045T priced at $50. If you look on eBay, you can get for around $56. The 6-core processor that will work in question. We've got the exact, and you can look on AliExpress and even find them for cheaper. Here's a 1055 for $52. So I don't know about AliExpress. I'm not really the biggest fan of that, but it's there. You can also get motherboards super cheap. This, in fact, is the exact motherboard I'm using on eBay right now for $49. And some drawbacks to this, it uses DDR2 memory, and, it's not the greatest of motherboards. There's no active VRM cooling or anything like that. She's a pretty donkey one. It's the M4A785M micro ATX board. It's gonna work. You'll see for our for our purposes here. I have had this overclocked before, and it did fairly well with this motherboard. So I think all of these Phenoms you're going to be able to get to a certain level, especially limited by this. So keep that in mind. Moving on, we have DDR2 memory at an all-time low price of $15 for 8 gigabytes. So if you hunt around, you can definitely find some deals on it. Now, if maybe you find a deal locally and you can get all this stuff bundled and get much better stuff, like I was saying, a better board. Phenom will work with an AM3 or AM3 plus board, which takes DDR3 memory. So, playing your stuff accordingly. But I'm literally going with this exact setup. $15 for some memory. We have $26 for a mechanical 500 gig hard drive, which is going to be enough to load 4 or 5, 6 games, depending on the size of them. And yeah, they're going to load slow as hell. You could go for an extra $30, even $25 sometimes for 120 gig SSD, Kingston or whatever on Newegg. So keep that in mind. Just you could budget this around $300 and have an even better experience. Moving on, there's our graphics card, boy. It's the RX 460, or this is actually a 560D, which is actually even worse than the 460, depending on the model you're getting. But they look pretty much the same, and they will perform pretty much the same, especially once we overclock them a little bit, which they actually do, which should be fun. But yeah, RX 460s for $62.95 all over eBay, and those are better than 750 Ti's. These are really awesome cards, and Ozzy from Oz Talks Hardware recently did a dive into how good these are, and they plug into anything. Which is not going to need any extra power, which leads us to a case. I went and grabbed a case from my garage filled with old crappy computers and ripped out some old P4 system, and I'm using this crappy case. For example, I got it technically for free or whatever. You could probably go on your Craigslist and find a $10 computer case, or if you were feeling spicy, you could go on to Newegg and you could spend $25 on sheet metal that will cover your computer parts, or use a cardboard box, for all I care. And last but not least, power supply. I have this Raid Max one that's $25.99. It's a 500 watt. It's not the greatest power supply by any means. This is actually a Thermaltake 430, which I actually would think is worse than that one. It only has one 6-pin on it. That's it for powering a graphics card. So luckily we don't need any extra power. But that pretty much settles her up. That is, if we want to check out here, $55 for the CPU, $37 for the motherboard, $15 for DDR2 800 speed 8 gigabytes. Sorry, I'm a little sick. $62.95 for a RX 460, 30 gigs for a 500 gig hard drive, $25 RAID Max, throw out a $23 PC case, and then I'll throw it all together, $248. So that's pretty good. I'm going to say that's a $320 Canadian or Australian price for a computer. And we're going to go ahead and build it and actually see what kind of games we can play with it. So you hold your horses. I'm going to build this computer up. And we're actually going to see what the performance of a $250 computer that's all been hand selected and built from the ground up can play in 2019. And we know it's not going to be Apex Legends, but that sucks. But we'll see what Fortnite does. Yeah! Alright, so I've come to the conclusion that this motherboard's VRM cannot handle a 6-core Phenom. After all, when this motherboard came out, it was a cheap motherboard to begin with, and only quad cores were a thing when this motherboard came out. So even though it says it has AM3 support and the Phenom is an AM3, it's really not a good idea. It's like putting the 2700 on a, A320 motherboard. It's just a really bad idea. So to illustrate my point before I go ahead and fire this Phenom into a proper motherboard, so we can see if my system actually would have worked out had I used an appropriate motherboard. And I do believe you can get an appropriate motherboard that will work with the Phenom 6 cores for roughly the same price as I pulled up for this, within margin of error. We could still make this a $250 gaming PC, just not with the crappy hardware that I have. And personally, I don't care about it anymore. I've made a terrible decision, and it's intermittent. It's once the VRM gets hot enough, it will throttle. See, 1600 megahertz down here, you see? That means that the VRM's throttling, and it's not the cooler because, the temperatures on the CPU are only at 42 degrees. But as this is going to finish up, it's going to look terrible on it because I ran it at stock for a bit, 446. That's not very good, seeing as this is 6 core. I ran stock before and I was getting like 500 and something, but the second round it would be much lower because it was throttling. I've already kind of been through the whole rigmarole. I just don't think this is a stupid, futile effort to keep going with this motherboard. So we're going to go ahead and shut this system down. I'm going to put the Phenom, the processor, and the video card, I should say, and the hard drives on my test bench that has a 990 motherboard, an AM3 proper FX series motherboard on it, and we'll just see how much better the performance gets with the Phenom, because I still think you could make a decent system here for $250 if you played it right, and I just obviously didn't play it right, and I'm a freaking moron. So let's get this shit going, man. About failure. Oh my goodness. That was a failure, okay? The motherboard didn't fix much, really. It did cut down the stuttering, I'd say, in half, but it was mostly still there because the expert that I am can't figure out that this combination of hardware can't play your latest and greatest games, especially not at 1080p, with any sort of reasonable frame rate. Metro Exodus was only slightly better once I got the 3.9 gigahertz overclock on the FX motherboard going. And this has much better memory at 1600 megahertz, and it had double of it, even though most of the time with the settings I was running, I didn't see RAM usage over 6 gigabytes, so there was that. But yeah, I think here, let's just go and shut this piece of garbage off. Even with, if you want to check out, I have a little overclock of, you have to turn the power limit up on this card, otherwise it doesn't even hit its, like it's expected, it's 1200 megahertz boost clock. But you turn the power limit up, you can rock over 1200 megahertz on this thing. It's got 2 gigs of GDDR5 and a memory clock I had it cranked to 1950. That's just not going to help you. It's not going to help you because this specific computer, it's too crappy to do what I wanted it to do. So let's talk about what it can do. Here, and we'll put this meme up here because why not? Facepalm, Lord of the Rings guy, or maybe that's a dragon. What's the dragon show? Lord of the Flies. I don't know what this is from. I'm terrible. I'm a meme guy. I don't like wizards, which I'm sure that this is from a wizard show. I like space, so put a Captain Picard meme up there. There we go. Double face palm. I like that one way better. I totally botched this thing. So all in all, the hardware just isn't good enough to do 1080p in 2019 / end of 2018 games. Like Battlefield 5, it did fairly well. I could play Battlefield 5 at medium settings at 1080p, or low settings, I should say, with this PC. It wasn't bad. The frame times weren't that bad. But Rise of the Tomb Raider stuttered like an utter bitch. Metro Exodus is not meant to be played on hardware this crappy. And even things like, this computer will play Fortnite, but it had, for competitive use, way too many dips in frames. Like, the 0.1% lows were terrible. And, it played Counter-Strike all right at like 70 FPS, on, with the settings kind of cranked and stuff too. But, again, there's just frame time issues that just kind of make it a little bit... I wouldn't play competitively with this computer, but I think all in all, this thing played Dirt 4 half decently. It's just that I was expecting way too much from the hardware, and I think that's what, a fun thing about this, is that I did an exercise in sort of some futility here, trying to build the $250 gaming PC, when probably would have had way better results buying an i5, 2400 Office PC and just shoving that video card in there, and probably could have stuck to that $250 budget. You could probably get, a pretty decent Office PC for $180, especially if you hunt for deals. And then you take that $60 video card, Bob's your uncle, and would have had way less issues trying to get overclocks and configure. And yeah, it has 2 less cores, but you know what? That Phenom, I think, will do better if I pair it with a better video card. So we're definitely going to revisit the Phenom. I also put a proper CPU cooler on it and see how far the overclock can get. So we'll look forward to an actual Phenom 1090T review in the future with a proper video card to see if, you buy a proper video card for it, or you have an older, 7970 or whatever, R9 280X. Maybe that Phenom will be just fine. I also am going to take that video card and put it on a proper CPU, and we're going to benchmark it to see how bad it actually is. It's a RX 560D, which is a cut-down shader version of the 2 gigabyte version of an RX 560, which just leaves it pretty low on the bottom there. But I was thinking that I'd get, 1050 performance. This should be better than 750 Ti performance, but I think we're just actually reached a time where newer video games won't play on those old, video cards or crappy video cards anymore. But for all of you out there that can't afford a 9900K or even a Ryzen 2600, and you're still rocking your Phenom, and for all of you out there who can't afford GTX 1060 or 20 or whatever 1660 Ti, and that's all the reviewers are looking at these days, I feel your pain, because I like to look into this old hardware and see how far it'll go. And I just spent the better part of 2.5 days trying to get this system to play ball, and it didn't. And that's how you might feel at the end of the day. That new game comes out, Metro Exodus, and you're thinking, maybe I could squeeze my hardware, just that much further and, play that game. And then you find out it won't. And it's disappointing. Well, face palm it up. The $250 gaming PC was a wreck. And I think the sum of these parts equal a pretty bad gaming experience, unless you're playing some lower level games like Dirt 4 or, you even played Battlefield, not so bad, but Exodus and Tomb Raider, meh. I don't think so. Or, you know, your esports titles, this will play Rocket League and Dota 2 all day long. So go ahead and play with the, you know, that stuff on here. But Warcraft even. World of Warcraft. So I'm at Watch Timmy Joe on Instagram and Twitter. Thanks for coming along for this failure of a facepalm of a ride where we try and make a $250 gaming PC out of parts that I had lying around for the most part. I just bought that video card. I thought I could do, you know, one of these really cheap, you know, computer videos that do so well on YouTube. But you experienced a failure with me because I'm not going to shit you. I could have just went and bought parts that would work. But hey, hell, I put a lot of work into this video. And in the end, it's just not working out that great. So yeah, we'll revisit the video card and the CPU later on. I'm at Watch Timmy Joe on Instagram and Twitter. Thanks very much for hanging with me. I'll see you guys in another video.